Ladies and gentlemen, let's be honest. When you've been dealing with an avoidant, the hardest part is not the silence. It's what the silence does to your mind. You start replaying everything. You start questioning your worth. You start thinking, if I just say the right thing, they'll finally feel it. They'll finally come closer. They'll finally stop running. It's simple, but it changes everything. Avoidants obsess over what they can't control. Not because they are evil, not because they lack feelings, but because control is the armor their nervous system learned to wear. When closeness starts to feel real, their mind searches for the quickest way to feel safe again. And safe often means on charge. They manage distance, they manage timing, they manage how much they reveal, and they manage you by keeping you slightly unsure. That uncertainty is not always intentional cruelty. Sometimes it is fear disguised as independence. But the result is the same. The connection stays on their terms, and your nervous system pays the price. So when you chase, you accidentally feed the very system that keeps them distant. Every extra text, every apology you didn't owe, every late night paragraph trying to make them understand, every time you rearrange your dignity to keep the connection alive, you hand them proof that they can pull away and still keep access. Your chasing makes them predictable, and predictability makes them comfortable. Comfortable avoidance is still avoidance. Now imagine what happens when the chasing stops. Not with drama, not with threats, not with a speech. It stops quietly, cleanly, almost respectfully. You stop sprinting after mixed signals. You stop auditioning for consistency. You stop treating their silence like an emergency you must fix. And in that moment, the avoidance inner control panel lights up. The mind that was used to having you orbiting them suddenly loses its certainty. They cannot predict your next move. And when they can't predict you, they can't manage the emotional risk the way they used to. That's when the obsession begins, because the mind always returns to what it cannot resolve. That is why their thoughts start circling you. It's not always romantic at first, it is investigative. It is their brain running a search. What changed? Where did they go? Do I still have access? Did I push too far? Obsession is often the mind's attempt to restore control over something it no longer understands. And for an avoidant, losing control feels like losing safety. Here is what most people get wrong. They think the way to be unforgettable is to prove more, love harder, explain better, be sweeter, be perfect. But an avoidance mind does not respect what is endlessly available. It may enjoy it, it may take it, it may lean on it, but it doesn't fear losing it. And the mind only obsesses over what it might lose. The moment you stop being guaranteed, you become real to them in a different way, because now your presence has weight and your absence has meaning. Now, listen closely, because this is where you must stay clean. Stopping the chase is not a trick. It is not a punishment. It is not playing games. It is you returning your attention to your own life. It is you refusing to pay for connection with self-abandonment. It is you choosing a love that includes you, not a love that requires you to disappear. That is why it's powerful. It's rooted in self-respect, not strategy. When you do that, the avoidant ego begins to test. They might send a breadcrumb, something small and vague, to see if you will run back to your old role. They might suddenly watch your stories, like your posts, ask a random question, or pop up with a sweet line that has no follow-through. The goal is often not intimacy. It is reassurance of control. And the healed response is simple. You don't overreact. You don't punish. You observe. You match effort with effort. You respond to clarity with openness and to confusion with distance. Because you have learned that consistency is not a request. It is a requirement. Because the power is not that they think about you nonstop. The power is that you stop organizing your worth around whether they choose you today. You become the person who can love deeply without losing yourself. And when an avoidant meets someone they can't control, someone who stays kind but stays free, their mind keeps returning to that person because it confronts them with the one thing they can't outsource, the consequences of their own pattern. And if they do come back, you don't reward panic, you reward growth. You don't accept a rush of attention as proof of change. You ask for consistency, you watch for accountability. You let time reveal character, and even if they never return, you still win because you reclaimed your peace. The obsession is a side effect. The upgrade is your self-trust, your standards, and your calm that no one can steal. Take your time, removes pressure while keeping your value. And that balance is exactly what disarms an avoidance defenses and rewires how they think about you. Avoidants don't pull away because they feel nothing. They pull away because closeness can feel like a contract they didn't sign, a test they might fail, a spotlight that exposes the parts of them they've spent years hiding. The second they sense expectation, their nervous system can interpret it as danger, and their reflex is to create distance so they can breathe again. Most people respond to that distance by pressing harder, asking for more, explaining more, texting more, trying to fix the silence, and without realizing it, they become the very pressure the avoidant is trying to escape. That's why these 3 words matter, because take your time is not a chase, it's not a demand, and it's not a threat. It communicates calmly, I respect your pace, while also communicating quietly, I respect myself. And that second message is the one that protects your value. Here's the crucial distinction. Take your time is not code for, I'll wait forever. It is not permission for hot and cold behavior. It is a boundary wrapped in emotional maturity. It means, I'm open to something real, and I will not force certainty out of confusion. When you say it with steadiness, you remove the urgency that spikes their defenses, but you also remove the guarantee that feeds their ego. Because when you chase, you become predictable. When you become predictable, they can withdraw and still feel in control, still feel chosen, still feel like they can return whenever they want, and you'll be there. Take your time cuts that loop without cruelty. It says, you are allowed to be where you are, and I am allowed to step back from uncertainty. Now listen closely, because the words only work when your energy is honest. If you say, take your time, while your body is screaming, please don't leave me, they will feel the hook underneath the politeness. Avoidants are highly sensitive to hidden expectation, because hidden expectation is what makes them feel trapped. So you must mean it. Meaning it looks like this. You stop checking your phone like it's a verdict. You stop rewriting messages for hours. You stop trying to read their silence like a code, and you return your attention to your own life. You keep your routine. You keep your dignity. You keep your joy moving forward even if they are paused. That's not coldness. That's self-respect. Use it in real moments, not as a performance. When they say, I don't what I want, you say, I appreciate your honesty. Take your time. When they say, I'm overwhelmed, you say, okay, take your time. And then you stop talking. Do not follow those words with a paragraph that turns your calm into a negotiation. Do not add 10 explanations that sound like a plea. Let the sentence breathe. Calm confidence lands because it has space around it, and space is what avoidants understand. It also protects you from doing what you used to do, over-functioning, over-giving, over-explaining, and then calling it love. After you say it, you match it with behavior. If they disappear, you do not chase the silence, you let it speak. If they return with a vague, hey, you don't punish and you don't melt. You respond warmly but briefly, because warmth without over-investment is power. You are showing them that access to you requires clarity and closeness to you requires consistency. If they offer a real plan, you engage. If they offer a breadcrumb, you stay polite and you stay steady. Your kindness is not a reward for avoidance. Your kindness is your character, and your boundaries are your standard. This is why avoidants start thinking about you. Your calm removes the fight they expected, and your self-containment removes the control they relied on. There is nothing to rebel against, but there is also nothing to manipulate. They are left alone with one clean question. If I want them, am I willing to show up? And that question lingers because it isn't pressure, it's reality. If they truly care, your words give them room to step forward without feeling cornered. And if they don't, your words still save you because you didn't abandon yourself trying to rescue someone else's readiness. The magic words either become power or become noise because the words are simple, but the energy behind them must be real calm plus self-respect. You can say, take your time. You can say, no pressure. You can say, I understand. But if your nervous system is still chasing, still panicking, still trying to control the outcome, an avoidant will feel it. They may not admit it, and they may not even understand it, but they can sense when you are calm on the surface while gripping underneath, when your words offer space but your energy demands reassurance, when you pretend you're okay but your fear is driving the conversation. Here is the uncomfortable truth. Many people speak confident sentences while living desperate energy. They say, "I'm fine," while checking their phone like it is an oxygen tank. They say, "Do what you need," while secretly hoping the other person will panic and choose them. They say, "Take your time," and then attach a long paragraph that really says, "Please don't leave me." That mismatch is what triggers avoidance, because need feels like obligation, and obligation feels like a trap. Calm is not silence. Calm is regulation. It is the ability to feel the urge to chase and still not chase. It is the ability to feel the ache and still not bargain. It is the ability to want someone and still not abandon yourself to keep them. Calm says, "I can handle disappointment without turning it into panic." Calm says, "I can sit in uncertainty without begging for certainty." When you speak from calm, your words become clean. You stop explaining what is obvious. You stop repeating questions that have already been answered by their behavior. You stop trying to negotiate love with someone who only responds to pressure or pursuit. Self-respect is what keeps calm from becoming a doormat. Self-respect says, "My time is valuable. My heart is not public property. My attention is earned." It means you do not reward inconsistency with more access. You do not call crumbs a meal because you are hungry. You do not accept half effort and call it potential. You do not shrink your needs so another person can stay comfortable. Self-respect is not arrogance. It is a standard lived quietly, and it protects your softness from becoming a liability. Now watch what this does to an avoidant. Avoidants are used to two predictable responses: pressure or pursuit. Pressure pushes them into a corner, and their fear flares up. Pursuit hands them control, and their ego relaxes. Calm plus self-respect does neither. It removes the corner and removes the control. You are not demanding they come closer, and you are not begging them to stay connected. You stand like someone who will be okay either way. That creates a tension their mind cannot ignore, because they cannot place you in the old pattern. You are kind, but you are not chasing. You are open, but you are not available for confusion. You are warm, but you are not wavering. This is where "take your time" becomes unforgettable. Said with real calm, it means, "I'm not going to pressure you." Said with real self-respect, it also means, "I'm not going to wait in limbo." The avoidant hears both messages, even if you only spoke 3 words. Your steadiness makes you feel safe, and your self-containment makes you feel rare. And the mind returns to what is safe and rare, because it cannot take it for granted. But ladies and gentlemen, you cannot fake this. You embody it by what you do after you speak. You return to your routine. You keep your plans. You stop postponing your life for a maybe. You stop using their attention as oxygen. You pour into friendships, work, health, faith, learning, and the parts of you that were neglected while you were waiting. You let your days be full enough that a late night breadcrumb does not derail you. And when they reach out, you respond with steadiness, not hunger. If they show clarity and consistent effort, you open the door slowly. If they show confusion and inconsistency, you step back without drama. That is calm plus self-respect in action. And it is the energy that makes your words land, and your presence becomes undeniable now, where the entire dynamic finally breaks, because you end the push-pull cycle by cutting the rope. Push-pull survives on tension. They pull away, you pull back harder. They go quiet, you get louder. They retreat, you explain. They delay, you chase. And that tug of war creates a surge of anxiety followed by a hit of relief when they return, and your nervous system starts calling that love, when in reality it's a loop. The avoidant is trying to feel safe by controlling distance, and you are trying to feel safe by controlling closeness. Two people trying to feel safe in opposite directions will never feel secure. They will only feel addicted to the next shift in the temperature. Cutting the rope does not mean becoming cold. It means becoming clear. It means you stop treating their distance like a crisis you must solve and start treating their behavior like information you must respect. When they pull back, you don't sprint after them with reassurance, apologies you don't owe, or emotional labor they didn't earn. You don't write 10 messages to earn 1 reply. You don't twist yourself into low maintenance. just so they don't feel pressured. You pause, you breathe, you let your body settle before you decide what to do next. Because decisions made in panic always recreate the same cycle. You chase, they feel crowded. They withdraw, you chase harder, and your self-respect pays the bill. Here's what tug of war looks like in real life. They get close, you soften, and then they go distant. Your mind starts negotiating. Maybe they're busy. Maybe they're stressed. Maybe you said something wrong. Maybe if you just say it perfectly, they'll feel safe enough to stay. Then you reach out to fix the feeling, not the facts. You offer extra patience. You over-explain so they won't misunderstand. You apologize for having needs. You shrink your expectations into a version that doesn't scare them. And every time you do that, withdrawal gets rewarded. Because their distance produces your pursuit, and your pursuit teaches them they can stay avoidant and still keep access to your heart. The rope tightens, because your effort becomes the engine of the relationship, and the relationship becomes dependent on your anxiety to stay alive. Cutting the rope means you stop rewarding withdrawal with pursuit. If they are vague, you don't fill in the blanks with hope. If they disappear, you don't chase the silence, you let it speak. If they return with breadcrumbs, you don't call it a meal. You respond to clarity with openness, and you respond to confusion with space. Not to punish them, not to play games, but to protect yourself. You are no longer willing to pay for connection with sleepless nights, overthinking, and self-doubt. You don't punish inconsistency with cruelty. You simply stop funding it with your energy. And yes, they feel that shift immediately because they were used to the rope. They were used to the push creating your pull. They were used to your reaction resetting the cycle. When you stop tugging, the dynamic becomes simple, and simplicity exposes everything. Now the relationship can only be powered by what is real, consistent effort, honest communication, accountability, and follow through over time. Either they step forward or they don't. Either they grow or they repeat the pattern. And you stop volunteering to carry two-person relationship on one person's nervous system. This is what no tug of war sounds like. Fewer words, cleaner sentences, stronger standard. I like you, and I need consistency. I'm not available for hot and cold. If you're unsure, take your time, and then you stop. You don't add paragraphs that turn your boundary into a plea. You don't soften your needs into something unrecognizable. You let your actions match your sentence. You keep your plans. You protect your peace. You stop waiting in limbo. You stop making your whole day hinge on whether they show up. Cutting the rope also means you stop chasing closure from someone who avoids responsibility. Closure isn't a gift they hand you when they finally feel ready to talk. Closure is a decision you make when you choose self-respect over suspense. You stop asking for answers that have already been delivered through patterns. You stop reopening a door that keeps closing on your fingers. And the quiet miracle, ladies and gentlemen, is that when the rope is gone, your nervous system comes back online. Your energy returns. Your focus returns. Your confidence becomes steady instead of conditional. Whether they come closer with real consistency or drift away into familiar distance, you are no longer dragged across the emotional floor just to keep a connection alive. This dignity is magnetic because dignity communicates self-worth without begging for it. Inside avoidant dynamics, many people try to win closeness by increasing effort. They send longer messages, offer more patience, lower their standards, and carry the emotional labor for two people, hoping the avoidant will finally feel safe enough to stay. But an avoidant nervous system is not drawn to what it can easily access. It relaxes around what it can predict, and it is jolted awake by what it might lose. So when you keep chasing, you become predictable. You become guaranteed. And guaranteed access, even to something beautiful, gets taken for granted. That is not because you are not valuable, but because the relationship has no consequence. Your dignity restores consequence without cruelty. Dignity is not coldness. Dignity is not punishment. Dignity is not disappearing to create panic. Dignity is quiet clarity. It is the ability to feel love and still refuse to bargain with your self-respect. It is the ability to miss someone and still not chase mixed signals. It is you keeping your tone warm while keeping your standards firm. It is you refusing to turn your needs into a speech that must convince them. It is you realizing in your bones, that your heart is precious and access to it is earned through consistency, not demanded through pleading. When dignity arrives, you stop performing loyalty in ways that injure you. You stop calling anxiety chemistry. You stop calling confusion depth. Watch what changes when dignity becomes your baseline. When they pull away, you don't chase the retreat. You don't send the extra message to keep the connection alive. You don't beg for reassurance. You don't apologize for having a need. You don't twist your actations into something smaller so they won't run. You pause. You breathe. You let behavior speak. When they return with a breadcrumb, you don't punish them and you don't reward them. You respond politely, but you don't over-invest. You ask for clarity, not closeness. You match effort with effort. You stop giving front row access to someone showing up from the hallway. That steadiness is what people call magnetic, but really it is self-trust in action. Dignity also forces a mirror on the avoidant. Many avoidants are used to partners who smooth over inconsistency, tolerate emotional distance, and absorb the discomfort of uncertainty. When you stop absorbing, they finally feel what you used to manage for them, the gap they created, the loneliness they postponed, the consequences they avoided. Not because you hurt them, but because you stopped cushioning the pattern. Your dignity says, without hostility, I will not make your avoidance comfortable. And that message lands deeply because it removes the loophole the ego depends on, saying just enough to keep you, doing just little enough to stay safe. Now, if they want access, they have to show up with action, not just words. Here is where people break, ladies and gentlemen. They confuse dignity with strategy. They post to provoke. They act detached while secretly waiting to be chased. That is not dignity. That is manipulation wearing perfume. Real dignity is internal. It is you keeping your routines even when you miss them. It is you protecting your sleep, your appetite, your work, your friendships, your peace. It is you letting your life be full enough that one message does not determine your mood. It is you tolerating the discomfort of not knowing because you trust yourself more than you fear being alone. That kind of dignity cannot be faked, and that is why it is rare. Dignity changes your language too. You stop negotiating. You stop repeating yourself. You stop explaining basic respect like it is a lesson. You start speaking in clean sentences. I'm open to a real conversation. I need consistency. I'm not available for hot and cold. If you're unsure, take your time. Then you let silence do its job. Dignity doesn't fill every gap with reassurance. Dignity trusts time. Dignity watches patterns. Dignity rewards accountability and steps back from confusion. And when you live like that, you don't become harder to love, you become impossible to use. Where everything becomes undeniable because your actions must match the sentence. You can say, take your time, and it can sound powerful. But if your behavior still revolves around waiting, checking, hoping, and chasing, the words become a costume. Avoidants are not only reacting to your words, they are reacting to the energy underneath your words. And the energy underneath your words is revealed by what you do next. This is why the final keynote is the real magic. You say the calm, confident line, and then you actually live your life like you mean it. Most people think the sentence is the power. No, ladies and gentlemen, the power is the silence after the sentence. The power is the space you allow to exist without running to fill it. The power is your ability to stop managing the connection for two people. When you say, take your time, and then you continue sending follow-up messages, changing your tone, double texting, checking their last seen, stalking their social media, and waiting for a sign, you are still pulling on the rope. The avoidant feels that pull, and even if they like the attention, it confirms the old dynamic. You will regulate the relationship with your anxiety, and they can stay in control by staying uncertain. That is not intimacy. That is a nervous system contract. Matching your words with your actions means you stop building your day around their uncertainty. It means you stop treating their reply as a reward that decides your worth. It means you stop making yourself emotionally available in unlimited ways while they show up in limited ways. It means you stop giving discounts on your standards because you miss them. This is not about being harsh. It's about being consistent. Consistency is what creates safety, and avoidants secretly crave safety, even when they run from closeness. But safety cannot exist if you say one thing and do another. Safety cannot exist when you speak boundaries and then abandon them the moment you feel lonely. So what does matching actions look like in real life? It looks like a routine you protect. It looks like sleep you honor. It looks like plans you keep, even if they message at the last minute. It looks like you not canceling your life to prove you are available. It looks like you returning to your goals, your work, your friendships, your health, your faith, your hobbies, your growth. It looks like you letting the day be full enough that there's silence that become the center of your mind. Because the avoidance biggest advantage in the old cycle was your empty space. Empty space becomes a stage where you perform anxiety. A full life removes the stage. A full life makes you less controllable, and the mind obsesses over what it cannot control. Now let's talk about the moment they reach out, because this is where most people collapse. An avoidant often returns with a small signal a meme, a late, you up, a vague miss you, a soft apology without specifics. That is not proof. That is a door knock. And when your actions match your sentence, you don't throw the whole door open because you heard a sound outside. You respond with calm and boundaries, warm tone, limited access. You don't punish, but you also don't reward confusion. You answer clearly, but you don't over-explain. You invite clarity, not chaos. You might say, good to hear from you. What's on your mind? And if they stay vague, you don't chase the vagueness into a conversation. You let it end naturally. Because your time and attention are not a free buffet. They are a gift, and gifts go where they are valued. This is the hidden reason avoidants start thinking about you nonstop. It's not because you became unavailable in a childish way. It's because you became unavailable for games. You became the one person who didn't collapse into the cycle. You became the one person whose standards didn't melt under pressure. You became the one person you didn't need a reply to breathe. That's rare. That's memorable. That's what creates respect. And respect is the doorway to real connection, because without respect, love becomes a power struggle. And ladies and gentlemen, the greatest part of this keynote is that it protects you either way. If the avoidant rises, if they come forward with genuine consistency, accountability, and effort over time, your standards create a foundation for something real. If they don't rise, if they continue the same pattern, your standards prevent you from being dragged back into the same emotional chaos. Your actions matching your words becomes the boundary that saves your heart. So remember this, words open a door, but actions decide whether you walk through it. Take your time is not magic because of syllables. It is magic because it is backed by a life that refuses to wait in limbo.